Hi everybody, welcome to the webinar. We'll kick off in 1 minute because we can see the numbers are climbing as participants are joining. Hold on for 1 minute. Okay, whilst we're waiting for people still to join, because I can see the numbers are climbing, I just want to say hello and welcome to our Talis Aspire webinar. You said, we listened, and now we're doing. Before we kick off, a bit of housekeeping. So the session is being recorded today and will be emailed to all registrants in the coming days, whether you attended or not. It will also be shared in the Talis Aspire newsletter and on the Talis website. The recording might take a couple of days to get sent out to you, but don't worry, it is coming, so you'll get it through those channels as well. If you have any audio or visual issues, please leave and rejoin Zoom as it prompts you to check the settings as you join. And if you have persistent issues, speak to me in the chat and I will see what I can do for you. All right, let's kick off. So I'm Amy Sparrow. I'm the head of product marketing at Technology from Sage, and I'll be your host and moderator for the day. Your speaker is Scott Gibbens, who you can see on the screen as well, hopefully. Scott, give a wave, yeah. He's our new head of product at Talis. If you have any questions throughout the session, please add them to the Q&A box or the chat box that I'll be checking. And I'll ask Scott, I'll ask these to Scott during the Q&A time at the end, if I can't answer them by message live straight away. And if there are any questions that need clarifying, I'm going to ask participants to unmute, or I'll mute you and ask for clarification. So encourage you to please do speak up and get involved in the chat. And actually, can we just check if an attendee could message in the chat anyway, I'm going to now, that everyone can hear and see me okay? Maybe introduce yourselves. I'll put the hello in. Thanks, Gamer. Thanks, Katie. Thanks, Debbie. Loud and clear. Great. And welcome, everyone. Okay, so on the slide, you can see the agenda for today. We're covering some context of why we have a fresh new approach to product development at Talis, what we've been hearing from you, our customers, on the ideas portal and from our customer listening exercise last year. Then we're going to delve into what we've done so far over the past just over half a year now, and what we're going to be doing next, as well as announce our new feedback portal that's going to be coming up, which you can get involved with. So, before I dive into the customer listening exercise and what's on this slide, I'm going to set the scene and context as to why we undertook it. So last year, Matt Hayes was appointed as the new Managing Director for Technology from Sage across Talis and Lean Library. So I think many of you on this call may have already spoken to Matt during the customer listening exercise or at Technology from Sage Insight event in Birmingham earlier this year, or you've heard from him on our Technology from Sage product update webinars that we run a couple of times a year. After Matt joined, he appointed a leadership team across Technology from Sage. That's including myself as the head of product marketing, and Daniel Horvath as product director, I think, is on this webinar too today, and some others as well. And to get to know the Talis customer base, Matt and the leadership team undertook an extensive customer listening exercise, and that was in the UK summer last year. So on this slide is some of what we heard. There were some great positives about the appreciation for Talis' desire to innovate and our teaching, learning and pedagogical expertise, as well as some really great ideas and direction of what they wanted next. So things on OER, accessibility, and decolonizing the curriculum. Sorry. However, we also heard some opportunities for how we can better add value to our customer base. There was a need to address a backlog of ideas with some customers and a need for better clarity on what product development was happening and when, once an idea had been submitted, as well as a clear desire for some improved ILS integrations from multiple customers. So in response to this exercise and assessment, Matt hired our excellent new head of product at Talis, Scott, who I'm delighted to hand over to now to cover our fresh new approach to product development and what's been happening at Talis Aspire. Over to you, Scott.
Thanks, Amy. Good afternoon, everybody. Just a quick introduction to myself and the product team. My name's Scott Gibbens. I'm a head of product here at Talis, and I used to be a qualified, well, I still am a qualified librarian, so I've worked in further education, higher education, NHS libraries. I've also worked at JISC, and most recently, before joining Talis, I worked at Cortext. I joined Talis the end of last year, so last October. Shortly after I joined, we had Georgia also joined the team, and she joined a week after me. And she mainly focuses on our Elevate product, but also does have a finger in Aspire and is joining our Aspire calls. And then just a few months ago, Kate Broadfield joined as a product manager, and she's just learning the ropes as Aspire, and her focus will be on the Aspire product as well. So we got a whole new team in place, and we're focusing on bringing new processes along so that you'll get a phased approach to releases. So we're not going to wait until we've done every last detail. You might get a quick release so that something's there that you can then use, and then we can improve it in later phases. We're also looking at some quick wins. So there's lots of feedback we've had from customers, and we've put some quick wins in place that I'm sure you'll be aware of that have been quite well received. We're investing in an engineer team. So in the last few months, we've added 2 more to the Aspire team dedicated to Aspire, with 1 more coming in the next week. That's why I said 3, with the next week, the other one arriving. So that really means we can crack on with some of the developments that we want to do and get those delivered to you. Next slide, please, Amy. So we had this ideas portal that I'm sure you've seen in the past and contributed to, and there was a lot of ideas on there. And one of my first tasks was to get all those ideas off and organize them into some themes, really. And those themes are sort of covering things like improvements to list editing. So you could add items, for example, from your discovery engine instead of having to use Nielsen book data. Things like some problems, people had problems with reviews. We had a lot of feedback on reviews, which obviously a well-used part of the system. People are asking for improvements to the bookmarking so that websites are easier to bookmark in some cases, so the screen you're taking into is better. List viewing, I had quite a few comments on list viewing, and we're looking at, in the future, maybe having another way to view a list rather than your traditional top to bottom, maybe a scrolling list, a bit like you would see in Netflix, for example, as a different view that people can choose. Self-service, something we haven't heard a lot about. There's not much self-service in Aspire at the moment. You usually contact one of our excellent service reps like David or Isabella, but we're going to start putting some of these self-service option in things like the importance tag text, so you can just change that yourself. We're going to be doing some discovery work on that later in the year, where we'll meet with customers and ask what they'd like to see for self-service, what they want to do themselves. We've had quite a lot of feedback on analytics and reporting. Analytics and reporting, the feedback ranges from wanting a lot more analytics to just fixing some of the basics like list analytics and making them more relevant. Customization ideas. One of those common things that we've had on customization is the materials types. The people don't want to have a material type audio-visual because it doesn't mean anything to their students. They want to put a different phrase in. So making those customizable is something we're going to be looking at. And the hierarchy is something we know needs working on. At the moment, there's 2 different places in a hierarchy you can keep the student numbers, which does cause some confusion. Making it integrate better so you can use your student record system to integrate. And these are all things that are on our things we want to do. Now, they're not necessarily on our plan for the next year, because we have a good team there, but we can't do it all. So we're going to talk about what we're going to be doing later, about what we're doing now and what we're doing for the next 6 months. And then later in the year, we'll be deciding our roadmap for next year based on feedback. Next slide, please, Amy. So what we've done in the last 6 months, a quick sort of précis really. So we did quite a few things on list editing. We've just released some LTI deep linking rollover improvements to make it much easier to roll over your deep links if using LTI 1.3, and to make sure they all work as well. Some changes there as people started using LTI 1.3. We've added, so it automatically adds online resource link when you add a YouTube video, for example. In the past, they weren't putting the link in, so you'd have to go and add that. So that's an automatic add now. And we were starting to work through some accessibility improvements. One has just come out, which is effectively making it a bit more working based on 3.3.2. Most of these lists are very minor changes, most of these accessibility things, but they just mean, so when you have accessibility problems, visual impairments or others, and you're using your tab screen to move around the different tabs, it says what you're doing, and it's much clearer. We've done a few things on list viewing. We've done a back to top button added to the bottom of a list view. So if you're a long list, 200 or 300 items, you just want to go back to the top, you click on that. We were going to make the publish list button hover down with it, but when we were doing that, it was November, and we just realized it's going to impact on all your guides and information. So that's something we'll come back to in the summer months, so that you can actually have time to change your guides, etc., if you do need to. And it just means that a publish button will scroll down the screen, so if you're editing right the way down, they can publish without having to scroll all the way to the top again. But the back to top was a quick fix for that. We've also, in our report section, alphabeticized the time periods filter and made a searchable function, so it's much quicker to find a time period when you're running an all list report. In reviews, we've done a few fixes there that people are asking for, including the review outcome comments in the reviews export. So when you actually export all the details, you've got those comments, which are vital. The ability to edit student and library notes directly within reviews, so you haven't got to go back into a list to edit those. You can just delete a student note if it's a note from a lecturer, for example, or change a student note if it's relating to a link out to an ebook. And only current library acquisitions users can select assigning reviews. And bookmarking, we've made the extension available for Safari, as well as Chrome, Edge, and Firefox. So we know Safari was missing for a while, so we've got that sorted. We've added an OER suggestions. So if you have a full text journal article, it can find an OER version of that if one's available. And that uses an integration with our Lean library database of OER materials. So where possible, we're working with the other TFS products like Lean Library, so that we're not developing things 3 or 4 times. We can develop it once, and different products can use it as appropriate. And we've installed, we've changed the bookmark button to the bookmarking extension with an accompanying guide, so to encourage people to start using that extension rather than the bookmarklet tool that was there before. Okay, next slide, please, Amy. So what we're doing right now, well, we're doing a few things in this quarter. This quarter is, I suppose, just about to start, but we've started on these things already. Our quarters are, the next one is June to September. So we are integrating Primo, EDS, WMS, and Summon as a replacement for Nielsen Book Search. That means is when you're a list and you want to add item to a list, the add item screen where it searches your bookmarklet, your bookmarks that you've made, that will still be there. But instead of Nielsen book data, you'll be able to add your discovery tool, whether that be any of those 4. We're just testing that at the moment with a few Primo accounts and others. If you want to share information, if you are an EDS customer or a Summon customer and you want to share information with us, APIs and keys, that would be appreciated. We're on acquisitions integration. If you're an OCLC customer, initially it'll be for OCLC customers. This will allow you to add items from your review screen directly to your OCLC order screen. So you won't have to export or retype it in. It will just automatically push that in using the OCLC APIs. That will come after discovery integration, so that'll come later this summer. Because we have a bigger team now, it means we're going to be able to update some of the code in the background. Now, it's not the most exciting thing to talk about, but it actually means that with our updated code, that we can make changes quicker, and we'll make things like latest version of Bootstrap and later version of code will mean some of the accessibility enhancements are much more straightforward as well. So you always have to make sure that your code that you're using is up to date, and we're going to update some bits of code that aren't bang up to date for now. And we're working through a list of minor accessibility enhancements. We've got a list of maybe about 8 or 9 of these. None of them are major. It's just things like making buttons pop out a bit more, there's in one screen where the button's grayed out. You have to select items for that button to come alive, but it doesn't tell you that anywhere. So the button will have an accessibility comment on it. So these are the things we're planning to take us through to September. The biggest two are the discovery integrations and acquisitions integrations. If you're not an OCLC customer, don't worry. We'll be speaking to people like Folio and the Ex Libris as we go forward to see if we can integrate with their systems as well. Next slide, please. So what we're doing next, this takes us up to the end of the year. So we've talked about, this is our roadmap, and there's actually a link to this roadmap live. So as it updates, you'll be able to see an updated roadmap throughout the year.
Scott, sorry to interrupt for 1 second. I'm going to put you on pause because we've got a raised hand from Nick Gates. So Nick, I'm unmuting you. You might have to unmute yourself as well. Oh, that worked, Nick?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Brilliant. Yeah, sorry. It's sorry to interrupt, but it just seemed an appropriate moment because I wanted to just ask a question about the discovery integration, and I may not be here at the end. There was a couple of things really, and apologies if I've asked them before. First of all, do you have an idea of when this will be available? Because we're thinking obviously for the new academic year, it's going to be a big game changer in terms of academic staff adoption because it's much more intuitive when it's there, and we'd like to be able to sort of push this quite hard come September before the new academic year. And the supplementary question to it was, is this also going to be available within reviews? Because at the moment we've got the Nielsen database when we're checking editions within reviews, and it's not 100% accurate in terms of editions. So if we had something that we can access a discovery layer and actually the world share it completely, then that would be brilliant. But I don't know if you're planning to make it available there as well.
So on your first question, I say we're working as fast as we can on it. Primo will be the first one, but then we'll be adding EDS and WMS second. We are planning to get these done in July and August. I don't have a firm date for you at the moment, Nick. You're using WMS, aren't you?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so we have a good relationship with OCLC. There's not been any problems with getting API keys or anything like that. We've got a partnership with them. So it's just putting things in order. But I'm pretty sure once we've got the first one up, once we've got Primo up, the others will follow in quick succession because we're doing a piece of work to get one up, and then we're copying that work and just changing the things. So we are hoping to get that in for all of them to be up throughout August, but Primo may be a bit earlier. But as soon as we've got,
because we're running a lot of workshops in September, so if that feature is in place, it's going to be a nice one to be able to show academic staff.
Yeah, it's just taken us a little bit longer to get started on it, but to get it underway. But we are playing with that now. And as for the Nielsen book data, we've done a review of we've done a discovery on our reviews. And I don't know if you were involved with that, if you took part in one of the meetings, Nick.
Yes, I was there.
And reviews is looking at all the functionality of reviews. So it won't be for September, where we replace the Nielsen book data with your discovery service, but it might be something that comes out in the reviews process. My colleagues, Kate, and a couple of people in our UX team are going through all those videos and those talks with the reviews, and they're pulling out some of the highlights in terms of some of the features people have asked for, and also some of the ways of working changes in terms of people having to use 2 screens and that sort of thing. So we're working through those, and we have to work out a plan of are we going to do some quick fixes, or are we going to do a major rewrite?
Okay, brilliant. And sorry to have interrupted you, but thanks.
No, that's absolutely not a problem.
No, not at all. Also, I'm going to Hazel Rethera. I'm gonna unmute you as well, if you can mute yourself, because another comment in the chat, which I don't think Scott can see. Hazel said she would second the comment of Nick's about having an alternative to Nielsen for edition info and reviews. Hazel, anything to add? Sorry to put you on the spot there.
not really. That's pretty much the essence of it in the chat. I know I've commented before a number of times, and I think there's even an idea somewhere in the ideas forum about the fact that because the newer edition flag in reviews uses Nielsen book data and it seems to go purely off publication date, 99 times out of 100, when it tells you there's a new edition, it's lying. It's just a paperback or an ebook. And what that means is that our staff ignore it. We've got so used to it not meaning anything that we ignore it. And so we miss it on the rare occasions when it would actually be telling us something useful. So we need that flag to draw on an edition statement from somewhere, not on a publication date. And whether that would be something that this integration would help with, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's certainly something, Hazel, that came out in the meetings we had with people about the editions. I remember hearing that a couple of times on the ones I was on, and I wasn't attend all the meetings, but I know my colleagues. I think Kate attended nearly all of the meetings, and we heard that quite a few times. So certainly something we're looking into as part of the whole reviews process.
That's great, thank you.
And just while the chat's happening, because it's going well, so Debbie Bogart has come in saying, are we working with ESS for integration with Soprano at all?
It's not on our radar yet. We will look at integrating a couple of others later down the line, but we'll make a note of that one and speak to ESS.
Great.
The other one's Blacklight. A couple of people I think may be using Blacklight, which is another one we'll be looking at after we've done the big four, which the majority of customers are using.
Amazing. And not a question, but maybe a comment from it's a good time to talk about it, about the dates of when Discovery integrations will be live. Maybe we want to say here, Scott, about what the process will be once they are ready. But do you want to talk about how the customers will request it?
Yeah, so when we've got them ready, we'll be obviously doing a news release and sending out all, and we'll try and identify everyone saying what we need from you. So if you're a Primo customer, for example, we need an API key, we'll need a UUID and a couple of other information. Virtually every one of those provides, we need an API key, but different information for each supplier. So we'll be sending out emails saying, right, Primo's ready for people to start testing, to go live, for example, that'll be the first one. This is the information you need to provide us with. You send us that information, and we'll pop that into our system and then tell you it's available for you to start using. So it's pretty straightforward. It just requires you to get some information. For EDS, you just need to make sure your API is turned on, which I think is a different requirement for EDS. So they're all slightly different, but we'll make sure we ask you for the correct information. If we've got a pretty good list of who uses what Discovery system is, but if you do get an email asking you for EDS information and you're using WMS, just write back to customer service and let them know, because it may be that we're not 100% on what Discovery system everyone's got.
Thanks so much. I'll go back to your next slide and we'll carry on.
So this is a graphical view of the rest of the year of the things that we're planning. So you can see we've got the integrations there that we talked about with the Discovery engines and integration with OCLC. We've done this big reviews. Thank you for everyone that took part in the Discovery meetings that we had on reviews, and said we're going through all those now, working out how we progress with that. Do we do some quick fixes, or do we not do any quick fixes and just do a big piece of work which will take longer? And that's something we'll discuss about with the team on what the best solution for that is. We're looking at the self-service element I talked about. We're hoping to do that this year. And that will be a form of a discovery internally and externally, asking what you want to see in self-service. And also a bit of work on bookmarking. So we're going to be, we launched an open access service. So you could add open access like journal articles. When you find a journal article from Find a File like Elsevier, you could find an open access version if there is one. And some people have a problem with that because they have they add a proxy onto that URL in various ways, so that they're bypassing for single sign-on, those sorts of things. So we're going to having a bit of development so that you can ignore proxies when you're adding an OA item. And I think Amy's just put a link up to that roadmap for 2023. Now, we've only got a few months left of 2023, and internally we draw up our roadmap for next year near the end of this year. So near sort of December time, we'll be drawing up a detailed roadmap for next year. However, some of the things we talked about earlier, the analytics, for example, It's certainly looking at list analytics is something we want to get resolved. Talking about some of the customization, one of the things that wasn't on the ideas portal and any great work thing, but we've had a lot of emails about recently is decolonization of lists. And we're looking at introducing a tagging system. So like your importance tags, having a tagging system where you could add a tag that might say a comment about the author. So in some Australian universities were asking if they could tag a book that was by an Aboriginal author to highlight those books to their students rather than just a note, which may be not so clear. So adding some of those, adding a tagging system, you can use it how you like. You could use it as subjects, you could use it to tag things decolonization, however you want, but we think that might be something useful. And be like we'll do a discovery on that next year on different ways that could work. And we're also looking at integrate with course reserves. So those people that use course reserve systems, which mainly be in America, we'll be doing an integration where you can place your course reserves from within Aspire, and that will integrate with any library systems. So we've got quite a lot planned for this year and early next year. The next 3 months is pretty much set in stone what we plan to do. 3 months after that, it's a bit more granular. We're still doing discoveries, still finding things out, reviews and acquisitions, the self-service, etc. And then after 6 months, they're just some of the ideas that people have said that they want, that we're working into themes and that have lots of requests on them. The other thing that we do when we pull things into our big work stream is it's not only just the number of people that want it, but it's also how feasible it is. And there's some things that we have lots of votes on that unfortunately were an awful lot of work. So we have to look at the feasibility of some things as well. That's why some things that you may expect to see haven't come through yet, but we are trying to get as much of the things that people are demanding through as soon as we can. The next slide, please, Amy. So we got a new ideas portal in testing. There's a link there, and you can jump on that and start putting ideas in there. It's in a beta testing at the moment. It'll be linked into the proper Talis site in the next couple of weeks. But please, if you've got anything you want to put in there, just go and have a look. The customer services team, operations team are also using that same ideas portal. So if you give things to them, they'll be putting them into the same portal. The new thing we're going to do is respond to all ideas by the product team within 2 weeks. So nothing going into a black hole like it might have done before and not getting a response. You will hear back from us no matter what within 2 weeks. And we'll let you know what's going on. So it could be it's being done. It's in our next couple of months, or it's planned to be done. And we're going to do it in the next, and give you an idea of when that's planned is. There may be some things that we want to do, but then they're not planned. What that means is they're just not in the next sort of 6 months, or not in this year, but they are in the backlog, and we are trying to work through that backlog. So at least you'll know then it's in our plan. Sometimes we won't be doing things for the foreseeable future, but each time we give you a decision, we're going to explain why we're doing it. Our starting point is we want to do things that you're asking for. That's why we're here. There's no point us doing things that we want to do that you don't want. So our starting point is, let's do it. Let's try and do that idea. But occasionally, if we're not going to proceed to an idea, we'll let you know why, and then you can decide if how important that idea is, and we can have a conversation about it. If need be, it may be something that we can modify because we can't do it the way you expect, and that's absolutely fine.
Thanks so much, Scott. There's quite a lot of questions in the chat, so I've allowed some people to unmute, but I'm going to read out some, not in order of how they came through, just because Hazel's got a couple that are very timely. So Hazel's asked, will existing ideas be transferred over into the new portal, or will they need to raise them again?
So all the existing ideas have been captured. So they've all been captured. So that slide I said, you said we listened, all those themes, all those tickets have been transferred from the old portal. They won't be in the new portal in that sense, but they're all into our backlog, and we've been working through them and assigning them to themes. So if they're reviews theme, if they're self-service theme. So that's how we dealt with the ones for the backlog. They are there, they are captured, but it just won't necessarily appear in the ideas portal. If you want to submit something again, it's fine. We'll pick it up and we'll know what it is. It's not a problem if you're not sure.
Thanks. And then I'm going to go back to a few others. So scrolling back. So Claire Snowden's asked, can we test the new discoverability feature before making it live?
We'll try and check it's all working for you, but it's going to be a bit tricky to test it before making it live. You don't have necessarily a sandbox, so it'll be a case of you know, agreeing with you when you want to switch that on, so you can be ready for it effectively. But we will try and make sure that we've got the correct details for them, and we'll let you know. But if you don't have a sandbox, it's a bit tricky, so we'll make it. When do you want it? Right, we'll switch it on for you in consultation with the operations team.
And Katie Maiden has asked, will we be able to report on tags? And Katie, I've allowed you to unmute if you want to elaborate on that.
Well, that was the whole question, really.
Oh,
It's just whether or not, if you say you've got, I don't know, diverse authors or something as one of your tags, whether we'd be able to pull a report of those ones. Yeah, that's the whole question.
Yeah, the plan is to do quite a few things with tags. One is so that you can pull a report on them. But the other is for the future to help people with decolonization of lists. If we start getting lots of data where people are tagging things in that way, we can help other institutions or your institution decolonize other lists. So it's, yeah, plenty of reporting on it, and hopefully some machine learning as well to help people with future tags.
Thank you. Thanks.
A question from CJ De Jong, who uses the LTI 1.3 deep linking UI in Moodle, saying he's finding it less than desirable. Has anyone else on this call found that? Any suggestions? I think it's a great idea, but in practice it's a bit frustrating. Is anyone else on this call, if you could hand up in the chat, using Moodle and the LTI 1.3 deep linking on Moodle? You have something to add here? We've got a hand up. Let me find you. Sorry, I'll scroll through. Emily, you're allowed to talk, Emily. Thank you. You should be able to unmute now.
Sorry.
Okay.
We've only recently sent our Moodle team all the info on how to update to the new LTI. And as far as I've heard back so far, no one is really taking full advantage of the improvements as of yet. It was very popular in past years for certain departments. For example, politics really enjoyed integrating particular weeks or subsections of their lists into their Moodle pages, which should not always go super smoothly, particularly with regards to rollover, but we've already noticed a bit of an improvement on older lists that we've had a peek at.
Amazing, that's super useful. Thanks, Emily. And Hazel, I know your hand's up as well. I think
yeah, we've been in a bit of a hybrid situation this year, because we, depending on when our individual academics rolled over their Moodle courses last summer, we've had some people still using 1.1 and some using 1.3, because the integration with 1.3 with Moodle came a bit later in the summer than we were originally expecting. I think the main thing that people who have used it dislike about the 1.3 integration, as I understand it, is something which happens at Moodle's end, not at the Talis end, which is that you can't embed the readings so that they're visible within the Moodle page. They create a separate page to which you have to link out. So visually, they're not displayed in line in the page. That's not an option anymore, which people used to really like. I'm waiting with interest to see what it does to our Google Analytics, because we used to have astronomically high Google Analytics with LTI 1.1 for some embedded readings, which we were very suspicious of, because we would get this particular business course where it's got a lot of students on it, but during semester I do weekly Google Analytics stats for our most clicked on pages. And every week we would be getting every embedded section of that list up in the top 10, even when it wasn't even the right semester. And we thought there's no way students are actually clicking on these. And we understand from our tech guys that what's probably happening is that simply the action of people scrolling down the Moodle page was causing Google Analytics to record a click as though they'd looked at that embedded section. So I'm hoping that the 1.3 integration, where in Moodle what it creates is a separate link that students have to then go and actively click on, will give me some more accurate analytics, because I will know if students have actually gone and looked at that embedded section. But the academics don't like the fact that it's not a visible embed that actually appears in line in the page. But as I understand it, that's a Moodle thing rather than a Talis thing.
Yeah, it's one of those difficulties, Hazel. They all the different VLEs work slightly differently. So it looks really nice in Canvas and Blackboard, not so nice in Moodle, unfortunately. But certainly with the Google Analytics, it is something that we know about, because I think maybe you others had raised it with us, and we have had discussions. I don't know if the new upgrades we've done will resolve that for you in 1.3 there.
Thank you. And a couple of comments in the chat I'll just read out. So, they respond to each other. Okay, that's great. I think that's everything on the CJ question. CJ, I hope that was helpful. And then I had one more that came through in the Q&A box, Scott, which was, if I just open it, give me 1 second, about accessibility. It's saying, I haven't seen the accessibility enhancement you mentioned to list editing yet. When did that happen? And can you just revisit some of the accessibility items too again? It's a big piece for us.
Yep. So accessibility, there was one released, I think it's yesterday. So if you've not gone in yet, since yesterday, it's there now. And yeah, we've got about, I'd say most of these items in accessibility. What happened was we had a meeting with Michigan University last year, end of last year, and they have accessibility experts who went through the Talis Aspire site in great detail. And their feedback was, these guys seem to know what they're doing, which is actually a very high compliment, which was good. We like to hear that. And then they said, but we've got a number of minor things, none of them are game breakers, but they are just minor things. And it's just things like buttons that aren't properly fully tagged up, but not like the main buttons, but that are hidden away on secondary pages, or making things pop a bit more is when you're going over them and making them a bit more visually easy to access. So there was nothing that was a game breaker. All of these were like, they're nice to haves, but we thought, because they're not huge tasks, it's something that we can do when we've got new staff joining. We have an onboarding process for the new engineers, so they can do that sort of onboarding process, and we can pick them up if someone's got a couple of days free when they're in between new tasks. They can pick up a couple of accessibility tickets. So we're just sort of working through them on that ad hoc basis, but we've just started those a couple of weeks ago, so we hope to have over the next month half a dozen of those done, and we'll be reporting back on those in the newsletters. So they're not something that's going to break the system or make it work differently. They're just things that those people that use accessibility will find it that bit easier.
Thanks so much, Scott. Any other questions coming through in the chat, or feel free to just put your hand up in the attendee and I'll scroll and find who's speaking. I'll give it a minute, but whilst people are thinking, I just want to say thank you so much, Scott. It's really exciting, the new product approach, this customer-centric way of developing. As mentioned again, this has been recorded. You will get the recording in a couple of days automatically from Zoom. We'll also put it in the newsletters and on the website and all the regular places you can find these recordings. And if you have any feedback on the session today, you will get a thank you email in a couple of days. You can reply to, and it comes to me. So please give your feedback, anything else you want to hear, anything else you want to change. But I don't think there are any more questions. So thanks, Scott, and thanks everyone for joining today.
There's a couple of hands raised. Are they previous ones?
They're previous hands, I believe, unless Emily and Hazel, unless you've got more. No, hands down.
Fair enough.
Well, thanks very much, everyone. Enjoy your time back. Nick Gates, thanks very much, Discovery Layer. Can't come quick enough. Smiley face. All right, well, have a lovely afternoon, and anyone who's in the UK, enjoy the sunshine. Thank you, Scott. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.